It's the battle for the Governor's Cup Saturday in Lexington as Kentucky and Louisville do battle. We are here previewing, predicting, and breaking down this game between the Wildcats and the Cardinals. Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Phillips. He's Dave Shumate. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribe, turn notifications. Check us out via podcast, wherever you get your podcast. You can also find us across all social media platforms as well as our website, SECUnfiltered.com. This segment brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com. Use promo code SECU at sign up to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 or more lineup. That's prizepicks.com. Promo code SECU to get your $50 bonus today. Kentucky and Louisville will meet up once again to battle for the Governor's Cup at Kroger Field on Saturday afternoon. We are here previewing, predicting, and breaking down this game. I am Chris Phillips, and helping me do so, my good friend Dave Shumate joins me once again. Dave, what's going on, my friend? Appreciate you taking the time and excited to break down this matchup with you.
Yeah, I mean, as long as both these fan bases, like we talked about off air, haven't moved on to the old hardwoods so far, especially with Kentucky's hot start. But Kentucky trying to hold on to that 5-year winning streak. I know they lost a streak last week, going to a bowl game every year since 2015 for Mark Stoops. That was officially out the door with a loss to Texas last week. But you still have a streak against your in-state rival in the Governor's Cup. To extend that to 6 games at home, you don't want them coming into your crib and into that. So there's got to be a little pride here. You got to be fired up. Starting true freshman Cutter Boley at the quarterback spot. So there's some upside, something to look forward to in the future in an obvious disappointing year from Kentucky.
Yeah, to your point, Dave, we mentioned it off air, but, and it's low-hanging fruit. But, you do wonder with both of these fan bases, I don't think either team really met their expectations. And you think from the Louisville side, Dave, you look at them, they've been extremely inconsistent. They've had some big wins. They've had some bad losses.
They've had some closers too.
Yeah.
They've been all over the place.
They've been all over the place. I mean, they're coming off a blowout win against Pitt. They won at Clemson, a team that is fighting for the college football playoff. But again, some bad losses mixed in there as well in close calls. And, of course, I mean, we all know about Kentucky at this point, Dave. Just a really, really disappointing season. I thought this was going to be an 8-win team for Mark Stoops. I think you were kind of in that range as well. And we all knew that was a really important year in regards to trajectory. And now there's so much uncertainty when it comes to the future of Kentucky football. And people want Mark Stoops to retire. He says he's not going to. But here's the thing. If you're going to come back, it's been a disappointing year. You're not going to a bowl game, which is really frustrating. But beating the arch rival can help. Making it, 6 straight against the arch rival can help. That's exactly what Kentucky will try to do. Again, guys, a noon kickoff Eastern time on SEC Network Saturday in Lexington, Kentucky at Kroger Field. Kentucky, Dave, is a 3.5-point underdog in this game. The over-under is set at 48.5. Kentucky leads the all-time series 20-15. Again, Kentucky has won 5 straight in the series dating back to 2018. Of course, they did not meet in 2020 due to COVID. Last meeting, though, last year, Kentucky, you might recall, Dave, won a thriller, 38-31. That was the game. Ray Davis, I believe, had the game-winning touchdown. That was one of Devin Leary's better games as well at the quarterback position. And they were coming off a really frustrating loss against South Carolina. Kind of a similar situation. I think Kentucky was the underdog, if I recall correctly, but a thrilling game. They got the win against their arch rival. Dave, as we jump into this game, you mentioned, I think the top storyline in this one, outside of just the whole rivalry dynamic battle for the Governor's Cup, there's a new quarterback for the Cats. It's crazy, and I think it really speaks to and is kind of a microcosm of the struggles this season, Dave. We're going in the last game of the season, and Kentucky's making a change at quarterback. Brock Vandegrift out, Cutter Boley in. I think the big question is, what can we expect from this kid? I mean, again, I think if you're a Kentucky fan, it gives you excitement that, hey, maybe we're just going to see something different, because what we've seen to this point has been essentially the worst offense in the SEC. But, I mean, realistically, what are we going to get out of this freshman Cutter Boley?
I thought it looked decent the other day against Texas when Mark Stoops finally decided to make the call. I mean, why not? I thought he had some good anticipatory throws, was reading getting through his checks, getting through his reads. Now, again, is it a first guy getting thrown in against a good defense against Texas on the road? Yeah, absolutely. Did you see some stuff that he missed? Maybe some checkdowns? Sure. When you went back and watched some of the highlights, I was just interested. I wasn't even planning on really going back to watch the game. I mean, the Texas-Kentucky game, going back to watch it like I usually do. But I was like, well, they're starting him. We might as well just go back and watch a little bit of it. You like what you see from the Lexington native. I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't ride with him at this point. Brian Vandergriff has been so disappointing. I think you got to give Cutter a chance from this perspective. I don't really remember him coming out of high school. I mean, maybe just because he had been committed to Kentucky for a while from Lexington. But no, I think something to look forward to. Now, again, it's different when you get thrown into a game. The other team's not anticipating you playing. And then you come in, nothing to lose. You know what I mean, CP? There's nothing to lose attitude. So you're taking a little more risk. When you're preparing all week as the starter, they have some game film on you. It's a little different. It's a little different. It's similar to like the Marcel Reed from transitioning from the LSU to the South Carolina game. Clayton White and them got a week to really prepare that they knew it was going to be him. Throw some different looks at him. It could make the quarterback see different things.
Well, and it's different for Boley too. I mean, you're the starter for this rivalry game that, I mean, again, from the national perspective, people may not look twice at this, but these two teams hate each other. It's a big game. It's a big rivalry there in the Bluegrass State. So, for Cutter Boley, again, to your point, Dave, it's one thing to come in, mop up duty or late in game and you got nothing to lose, but there's a lot to lose this weekend. Hey, don't be the guy that messes up the streak, right? So
yeah,
Cutter Boley, it'll be a different week for him, and you wonder how he responds to it. Bigger question for me, Dave, is that Kentucky front seven. We've talked about them all year. How do they bounce back? Gave up over 250 rushing yards to Texas. They've got to be better in this one because as you take a look at Louisville, they've got some weapons. I mean, the offense has been, again, they've been inconsistent as a football team. The offense has been pretty good, though. That front seven, Deion Walker, Jamon Dumas-Johnson, that entire group's got to bounce back in this one.
Yeah, it's like it's weird, CP. It's like you can't figure out a guy like Deion Walker is so inconsistent week to week from an effort motor standpoint. I mean, I think when he's playing well, like you've seen against Georgia and Ole Miss, the guy's a potential first-round draft pick. I mean, guys at that size and that athleticism don't just grow on trees. Again, this Kentucky defense has just been weird all year. It's got some veteran guys. It's played a lot of football in this league. Even the transfers, Jamon Dumas-Johnson from Georgia. It just hasn't panned out. It's like this whole team hasn't ever came back from Oxford, Mississippi. I mean, it was.
They're still down there in the square.
They even had a bye week after it to kind of get off the emotional edge of it. I mean, I picked them to beat Vandy the next week. I thought they were in a good spot after Vanderbilt beating Alabama. Kentucky's an interesting case study. Like, what happened? It wasn't like you were bad from start to finish. It was just after the Ole Miss game. It's like he never came back.
Yeah, Kentucky was good enough to beat a team on their home field that beat Georgia. And we never saw them again, like you said. When you look at Louisville, Dave, we mentioned the Kentucky front seven. They'll have to slow down Isaac Brown, 896 rushing yards. He's averaging 7.4 yards per carry. He's got 9 rushing touchdowns. Heck, their backup, Duke Watson, he's averaging 8 yards a carry, 410 rushing yards, and 5 touchdowns. So they can run the football. Their quarterback, Tyler Show, has thrown for 23 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and Ja'Cory Brooks, their top receiving threat, over 1,000 yards, 1,013 receiving yards, 9 touchdowns. I mean, Dave, they can move the football. Like, Louisville has done a pretty good job this season. They've been inconsistent as a team, but offensively they've been pretty solid.
That's kind of what Tyler Shuck's been. I feel like a little inconsistent throughout his whole career, even going back to his days, even at Oregon, just kind of a little bit all over the place. I mean, I think we're calling it right now. I mean, the way it is, both these teams have been inconsistent. But I think you'd have to say, I personally, roster-wise, kind of like where Louisville is right now, like overall compared to Kentucky. So, I mean, yeah, Shuck will have his moments.
You think, Dave, you mentioned the close calls. They lost to Notre Dame by 7, SMU by 7.
Yeah.
They lost to Miami by 7.
Close game. That was
and they lost to Stanford by 3. So the story for them has been close losses. I mean, really, truly.
Yeah, and then Shuck isn't turning the ball over this year. I mean, he only has 6 turnovers, 6 interceptions, I should say. So it's not all bad. Again, true journeyman, people. From Oregon, 19 to 21, Texas Tech, 21 to 24, and then currently the Cardinals signal caller with the Brom squad.
I do wonder, Dave, in all these rivalry games we talk about, but especially when you have a streak like this, I wonder how the mental edge plays in this one. And I'll ask you, do you think that's something because, you know, in years and years of following college football, like you see rivalries get really streaky, right? It's like I've talked to guys that have been part of big time rivalries that will tell you it's like, you know, when they were there for their 3 to 4 or 4 to 5 years, it's like, man, they got in our head or we got in their head. Like we knew that we had their number. I don't know if that's as big a deal anymore because the rosters are changing so much. And so, like, what's happened the last 5 years probably doesn't matter to most of the guys on both these rosters. But still, it is something to talk about that, you know, Kentucky's just had Louisville's number. I mean, they just kind of no matter what the records were or how good each team was, seems like the Cats find a way. So I wonder if mental edge plays any role in this.
No, you're right, because I think like once or twice you could probably say Louisville was actually the better team. Like you mentioned the one with Devin Leary. Yeah, potentially, but I think you're on to something too, CP. In today's age now with the transfer portal, like you hate to say it, but again, let's call a spade. I don't think rivalries to these players and recruiting is much more national now. Like, you know what I mean? You're recruiting kids in a lot of places. The world's smaller. You can go visit a facility. For Louisville, if you live out in California and just by going on Twitter, like you can see stuff more. So like, again, I don't know if it's like, what's the kid in California? What's the rivalry for the Governor's Cup mean to him? Just hypothetically, I'm sure there's someone from California on one of these rosters out of the 250 kids out in between this. But like, you're right. It is, he may not be here as maybe like, Tyler Shuck, for example. This is his third school. Like, how much does this rivalry really mean to him? That's not a shot towards Tyler Shuck. It's just we're talking about Kentucky, Louisville. He's a quarterback at Louisville. There's other kids that have been to 3 different schools. It's like, I mean, okay, I guess maybe it means a little bit more than the Civil War with Oregon State when he was there. I don't know. Hey, you're right, though. You're on to something. It's. I don't think rivalries to the players mean as much as they used to. I think a lot of people would agree with that.
Yeah, I think they've always meant more to the fans, but especially now in today's college football, with, like you said, so many guys transferring, recruiting being national. It's I think to the players, it's much more. That's another game. It's our last game of the year. More so than I hate that side with every fiber of my being. We'll see if it plays out that way. Still, these two sides do not like each other. Dave, that being said, let's go ahead and lock in some predictions. I'll go ahead and start. Listen, I do agree with you. Starting the new quarterback, could it give Kentucky a spark? I keep waiting on this team to show some of that spark we saw early on in the season against Ole Miss. That feels like that was eons ago, by the way, when they beat Ole Miss. But it's maddening from the standpoint that this roster, I mean, this has been an incredibly disappointing year because this roster, I think, has solid personnel, especially on the defensive side. And it's just been really, really difficult to figure out. I do like where Louisville's at from a roster standpoint, to your point. The quarterback, Dave Shuck, I like their weapons on the offensive side. I think defensively, going up against a freshman, I think for Cutter Boley, going from coming in being mop-up duty to now being QB1 going into a rivalry game is a much, much different dynamic. Obviously, Dave, let's address the elephant in the room. This game is flying under the radar in regards to not even nationally from the SEC perspective. I mean, if you power rank the rivalry games in the conference, this one's probably at the bottom this weekend. I wonder what the energy level is at Kroger Field, because I think more people are focused on what Mark Pope and the Wildcats are doing on the hardwood than probably on the gridiron at this point. Again, still a big game. Kentucky has that mental edge. They've won 5 in a row. But, Dave, it's basketball season in Lexington. I think Louisville goes into the streak's got to end at some point. I think Louisville, from a roster standpoint, a motivation standpoint, I think just overall is in a much better position. Been a lot of close calls for the Cardinals. I think this is a close call that actually goes their way. I like Louisville, Dave, to win this game 23-17 over Kentucky. Again, listen, I went to the game last weekend, for those that don't realize, the Kentucky-Texas game. And while I was in the airport, met a great dude in the airport. Shout out to these guys. Met a great guy in the airport, Kentucky fan, was asking him, hey, how do you feel about the Texas game? His response to me, it's basketball season. I think Kentucky's moved on to basketball season. I think Louisville puts that final nail in the coffin. They get a 23-17 win and end the streak over the Cats.
You're right, CP. I'm glad someone's bringing some offense to Lexington. It's certainly not been Bush Hamden, Mark Stoops, Brock Vandegrift. It is Mark Pope and the boys who reside at Rupp Arena. It is basketball season, Kentucky fans, and all good things must come to an end. I'm with you. We're not going to sugarcoat this prediction, hype it up, give all the buzzwords. I just think I'm with you. 5 years, I think it ends this year. The only thing that gives me a little hope is maybe it's at Kroger Field and the fans will kind of will them to victory. But I can't trust Kentucky. I haven't trusted Kentucky since I picked them to beat Vanderbilt coming off the perfect spot off a bye week, and Vanderbilt coming off beating Alabama. It was at Kentucky at the Krog. I can't get over that. Kentucky's just not a good football team this year. I'm with you. I think Louisville's going to have the higher motivation, try to get that 8th, 9th win by the time bowl season's over. I don't know. Can't pick Kentucky in this one. I like Cutter Boley. I think he does some good things. It would be fun to go watch him go out there and play well and give Kentucky a chance to win. I don't know. I'm with you. I think Brom, a Louisville alum, played at Louisville. He knows this means a little something. He doesn't want to lose his first 2 Governor Cubs games. I think Louisville goes in and gets a 24-23 win. I'm with you. I think it's really close.
So, guys, do you agree with us? Do you disagree? How do you see this one playing out in Lexington when Kentucky and Louisville do battle? Guys, that's going to do all for us. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in again. Make sure you like, subscribe, turn notifications. Check us out via podcast. Wherever you get your podcast, you can also find us across all social media platforms as well as our website, SECUnfiltered.com. For Dave Shumate, I'm Chris Phillips. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in, and we will catch you on the other side.